Take a seat. If you have been reading our papers, you will know that the buzzword in the news headline these days would be the economic crisis. So for Front Seat today, we decide to bring you something more uplifting. It's going to be a presentation by NTUC union leaders on ways to upturn the economic downturn. And don't go away before you catch the interesting dialogue session chaired by Mr Lim Swee Say.
President, SecGen, CC members, brothers and sisters, good afternoon. As we heard from Mr. Kiftan, the outlook is going to be a very challenging one in the coming year. This chart shows us the GDP figures for Singapore over the years, and as you can see, for next year, the projection is somewhere between -1 to +2 in that shaded area. So it's going to be a tough year. And I think our experience on the ground coincides with the reports that we are hearing also from the government agencies. What has been the feedback from the ground? In order for us to mount a proper response to this, taking the feedback into consideration, then we are able to see what we can do to help companies cut costs, save jobs, and to do our best to guard against that massive retrenchments and a rapid rise in unemployment. So let's look at the impact on the ground. On the impact on pay, for example, if we look at the overtime, then we get feedback that unionized companies in the manufacturing sector, they have reported production volume falls 20 to 30%, and then nearly 30 to 40% of unionized companies in that sector has either stopped or reduced OT work. So this gives us a glimpse of the downward trend. If we look at shorter work week, it is even clearer. So over the last 3 years, you'll find that it has been boom time and the shorter work week has been very low. But then for 2008, it has gone up and it's clearly affecting close to 10,000 workers already. If you look at the AI, annual increment, and bonus settlements, then you can see the blue chart. On the chart on the left shows us the AI and the other one shows us the bonus settlements. The blue bars show the settlements for 2007. The center bar, the red bar, shows the first half settlements for 2008. And then the red bar on the right-hand side, settlements up to September. And you can already see that it is moderating down, again reflecting the softening of the economy. So that is on the pay side of things. And what has been the feedback in terms of the job side of things? If we look at retrenchments, you can see that after coming down over the last few years, then it has picked up. And you can see the tick going up. And the question is that for next year, 2009, you can see the question mark. We know that it is not going to get better. In all likelihood, it's going to get worse as the recession continues. The question is, how much more? And if you look at unemployment, similarly, you will see that there is now an uptick after a period of stability. And again, what would that figure be next year? So it is quite clear to us that the good times that we have been experiencing has taken a turn now, and that the coming year will be difficult. I think all figures, our ground feedback as well as government figures, have more than convinced us of that. Question is, so what shall we do? And I think that looking forward, there are 3 key areas that we can focus on. Again, looking at what we can do on the pay side of things. Secondly, what we can do on the job side of things. And then what role can our unions play? There are 3 things that we can do on the pay side of things. And the first one is the conduct of responsible industrial relations. And by this, what we mean is that let us look at the situation and be realistic about our negotiations. The earlier slide that I showed you has already shown that we are reacting to the softening of the economy, and the settlements for the AI as well as bonus have moderated. So I think this illustrates how industrial relations, as conducted by the labour movement in Singapore, has been responsive and responsible, and we will have to continue to do so. And here I have a couple of examples, both from the petrochemical sector, where there's been a drop in business in one particular petrochemical company between last year and this year, and as a result, the union as well as the management have agreed on moderated terms. And of course, we all know also that this year, for the civil service, the year-end payments have also moderated. The second thing that we can do with regards to pay is obviously to make full use of the elements of the flexible wage system, which 96% of unionized companies have, in order to help the companies to manage at a cost level commensurate, proportionate to the business outcomes, and in this way save jobs. So you know that the majority of our companies would have KPI-driven payments, or they would have the MVC, the monthly variable component, or both. And these are the kinds of things, as well as other combinations and formulations that can help companies react to business conditions. So as unions, when the company comes discussing with us, then we have to look carefully at how to operate this kind of system, both on the one hand to assist the company to save jobs and to be fair to the workers. The third element in the area of pay, what to do, is with regards to adopting more flexible work arrangements as well as find ways to cut waste. The recently issued tripartite guidelines on managing excess manpower have already suggested many. On the ground, the feedback has suggested that measures to save on cost of electricity, other utilities, cost of materials, working with unions to ask workers to go on leave, take the leave early, shorter work week, temporary layoffs, changing shift patterns to match supply of workers to demand workers more tightly, headcount freezes, redeploying workers from an area of work where there's really no more demand to another area of work within the company where there's still demand, so as to keep people occupied and to be able to make full use of the human resource, reduce OT hours as we have seen, and including eliminating shift work. And here I have some examples of this. You find that there is a company, these examples are real. There is an example of a manufacturing company in the engineering cluster. And what happened is that the situation is that there has been a significant drop in the production orders of this company, almost half. And then as a result, there is a stockpile created. They produce and then they could not sell it off. So they have to do something to streamline the production. And so the company management discussed with the union, and they came up with a number of measures, including plant shutdown, as well as how do they allow for the company to offset against the leave of the workers in order to help with the cash flow and so on. Further, they have discussed and agreed on change of shift patterns. Now, this is the example of one company. The key point here is not to copy exactly what they are doing. The key point here is to note that the union in this sector, and I bet all unions under the umbrella of our NTUC, will look at the situation of the industry, of the sector, of the company that you're dealing with, and what are their needs. And then look at the menu of possibilities and to say what makes most sense, what is the smartest combination, and then to work it out. Next, I move to what are the kinds of measures that we can look at in terms of safeguarding jobs directly. Again, here there are three things. First, with respect to the tripartite guidelines on managing excess manpower, These guidelines are already available to all our unions, you know them, and clearly the guidelines call on companies to consider all alternatives and retrenchment as a last resort, with management taking the lead. So this is one thing, and where unions, tripartite partners work together like this, then we are able to minimize unemployment. The next thing Singaporean workers have also asked is, okay, so company by company, we try to work with the management to minimize unemployment. But then there are all these foreign workers. So now we have a recession. So what is the position with respect to foreign workers in Singapore? Last week at the Singapore Tripartite Forum, Tripartism Forum, there was a discussion. Both the Minister for Manpower as well as our Secretary General made comments about this subject matter, and it was then subsequently reported in the media. I wanted to explain to you this position. Clearly, our priority as our labour movement in Singapore is to save jobs for Singaporeans and to minimize the retrenchments. And with respect to foreigners, we've got to deal with it in such a way that is both pro-business as well as pro-worker. So the Minister for Manpower quoted an example where he said a company told him that they do continue to need the foreign manpower in order to average down the cost so as to stay afloat. And obviously in the company, it is not only the foreigners who are working there, they are also Singaporeans. So indirectly prolonging and protecting the jobs of Singaporeans. Our Secretary General added to that business case by saying that while you say that you need the foreign manpower to average down, but do not forget that there is great value to you, the business, in having the Singaporeans remain as well. And the idea is really that no company can just have 100% foreign workers. So there is a ratio, depending on the industry, between local as well as foreign manpower. And therefore you need that local manpower as a multiplier for the foreign manpower. And you will need this multiplier when the upturn comes, will recover. And if you over-retrench Singaporeans, for example, you may think that you save cost immediately, but then how are you going to take advantage of the upturn when it comes? And therefore, there is a smart way of doing it, and you have got to balance it very carefully. Foreign workers in Singapore, one of the reasons for having them, obviously, is that in an economic expansion, the number of jobs created per year may be more than the number of additional Singaporean workers that you can find. And therefore, they come in, but as they go down, then they are supposed to be part of a buffer. So the idea is that in good times, for example, you might find that there is a certain ratio between the foreign workers and the Singaporean workers in the economy or in a company. But in bad times, as foreign workers take the brunt of the downturn, so both through direct retrenchments as well as through non-renewal of their work permits when they expire, you might find that although both the numbers of Singaporeans in work as well as the foreigners in work may decline through retrenchments, but they will take the brunt of the loss of jobs. And so the bar shrinks because the total workforce shrinks, but you'll find that the percentage of the blue compared to the red is actually higher. And of course, when you preserve it, then preserve the blue, the local, then when the upturn comes, you can use that to multiply. So once again, you need a lot of workers, and then you cannot find enough locals. Then again, you are using that ratio to be able to bring in the foreigners.
Take a seat.